What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, and today I'm hiking to an area called Nuclear Lake. And the reason why it's called Nuclear Lake is there used to be a nuclear fuel manufacturing facility here, and there was actually a spill where there was an accident on the lake. They had a facility where they were making plutonium and enriched uranium, I guess, for nuclear power plants and nuclear bombs. This was back in the 70s. They had a power plant, or not a power plant, I'm sorry, they had a facility here, and there was an explosion where some plutonium was actually released into the surrounding area here. So I brought my Geiger counter, and I'm gonna do I'm gonna test and see if there's any radiation. It's nice woods. I got my little survival day pack on me. I got my knife here on my side because you never know what you're gonna run into. So it's always good to have some basic gear with you, even if it's a short hike. You know, you should always have a survival knife and stainless steel canteen and a ferrocerium rod so you can start a fire and boil water. I would say those are the basic things. So stick with me, and I'll show you some nice scenery, and you know, I'll measure the area with my Geiger counter and see if they actually cleaned it up. This is actually the Appalachian Trail, so the Appalachian Trail goes through here. So hope you guys enjoy. All right. There's just a welcome sign, or basic kiosk here about Lyme disease and bears hanging up your food. So start hiking. There's a power line right of way here. It's really dense ferns. It's important when you're hiking to have proper footwear so you don't twist your ankle. Right now I'm just wearing my my all-purpose boots, but you always want to have good footwear, and always have enough water with you. You want to have, like I said, a stainless steel canteen, and ferrocerium rod so you can start fires, and a knife. Knife for self-defense in case you have to protect yourself from an animal or person. You can make a spear if you have to, and canteen you can boil water in. So looks like we got some squirrel activity here. There's a lot of old growth trees in this area. Got this smooth beech tree here that someone carved some stuff into it. A lot of times the beech trees, you can see if there's bear activity, because the bears will climb the beech trees and they'll scratch the tree up because they try to climb to the top to get nuts at the top of the tree. We got some big oaks here. So this area is actually pretty interesting, guys. It's in addition to the nuclear facility that was here, and there was that explosion that leaked out the nuclear fuel, the plutonium. There was also a Bigfoot sighting here, pretty well known, and actually the one of the TV shows, the Bigfoot Hunters on Animal Planet, they actually came here one time to investigate it because I guess the sighting was very credible. But you know, essentially, you know, there was a family that was camping over here right on near the shore of the lake, and they thought they saw a Bigfoot and something was harassing them while they were sleeping. One of the guy who was camping, I guess he was with his wife, and his wife thought she saw like a bipedal creature, or definitely they said it wasn't a bear, and something was harassing them when they were in their tent. You know, something was like pushing on their tent, and they say it wasn't a bear. They saw tracks later and it wasn't any bear tracks. It's a very remote location here. It's very steep terrain. There's a lot of rocky outcroppings, as you'll see. So it's a pretty interesting area. You know, you got the Bigfoot sighting. You know, they actually came here and investigated. And then you also had that nuclear situation. So it's pretty cool. And I'll show you guys some more pictures here of the terrain. Alright guys, here's a nice little rocky outcropping here. This is on the Appalachian Trail in Dutchess County, New York. There's like some caves in here. It's pretty cool. This would be a good spot to you know, shelter up for the night somewhere. It's more of that granite outcropping here. Sometimes there's bear dens in these types of outcroppings. Always have to be vigilant. You never know what's underneath those rocks. It's a lot of old growth forest here. So here's just a video of the steep terrain over here. You got a lot of like caves and, you know, rocky outcroppings. You know, it's good habitat for a bear because they can make dens inside of the rocks, and obviously potential Bigfoot, you know. So some pretty rough terrain here. You can see these big stones, this big granite wall here. Look at that. Pretty cool, huh? There's a lot of granite in this part of the state. In this part of New York State, it's mostly granite. So you always see granite in the woods. So pretty cool. Here's another view of the terrain. You can see it's pretty secluded and remote. You could definitely see why a Bigfoot would be here, if at all. Got a lot of rocky areas, a lot of secluded areas. So pretty cool. But you know, I'm always open-minded about stuff like that. You know, you never know what's out there. There's so much forest and so much land that hasn't been explored yet. You know, who are we to say that, you know, Bigfoot doesn't exist? We don't know. I mean, we're still discovering species that are totally new. You know, the giant squid, for example, was thought to be a myth, you know, and now we have scientific evidence that the giant squid is real. You know, there's other types of giant eels that have been coming up in recent years, so who's to say that there isn't some type of big bipedal primate that lives in the forest? It's, you know, it existed back in the Ice Age. It was called Gigantopithecus, and it was thought to have gone extinct, but, you know, who knows, maybe some of them survived in the Canadian wilderness, and, you know, maybe they're still with us today, so it's pretty interesting. So the wildlife in this part of the country, this part of New York, the most common wildlife is, as far as like large mammals go, or mammals, would be white-tailed deer, black bear. Black bears are pretty common here. White-tailed deer, turkeys, you know, assortment of amphibians, frogs, coyotes. There's a lot of coyotes here, and the coyotes actually get pretty big in this part of the state. I don't know if it's like that everywhere else, but they get pretty big. They get to like the size of a, you know, a German Shepherd. So it's always good to have some self-defense tools with you, and a flashlight if you're hiking in an area that may have, you know, some type of predator like a bear or coyotes. You know, even just the survival knife is better than nothing. You know, if a bear attacks you and jumps on you, you know, at least if you have that knife, you can get one good stab at it. And, you know, many times that's enough for the bear to run away, because the goal is for them to just scare you off. Many times they're not trying to kill you and eat you. But just having a knife with a large blade can give you some type of a chance, you know, versus if you have nothing. Ideally would be pepper spray, and normally I carry bear spray with me, but I didn't feel like bringing it today. But bear spray is very effective against, you know, bears, and you could also use it against anything else really, coyotes, people, raccoons, whatever, stray dogs. So alright guys, you've heard me talk a lot about using your environment to create shelter, and here's a good example. You have a lot of these hemlock trees here, and they're pretty thick. You know, they can naturally just shield out the rain and the snow, and they provide natural shelter. So, you know, if you're in a situation where you're in the woods and you're stranded, and, you know, there's some snow or some bad weather, you know, use the environment to your advantage. You know, like right here I have this hemlock that, you know, leans over and provides natural shelter here, and, you know, would protect me from wind and snow, and I could just, you know, build a fire and take shelter here. I don't have to use any calories to, you know, build any shelter, you know, and expend energy and time, you know. So it's just a little example here. You know, evergreen trees, you know, make a really good natural shelter. That's why a lot of deer and animals, you know, when there's really bad winters, they shelter in stands of hemlocks and spruce and fir stands, because they provide natural shelter. They break the wind. They, you know, provide some overhead protection from snow and the elements. So, you know, learn from the animals and, you know, see what they're doing. And, you know, it's better than building your own shelter, which, you know, you have to spend time and energy to do. So that's pretty much it. So I found a nice area where you could, something like this is, you know, natural shelter. This is just like a rock that's split in half, and there's just like a little pit here. This is a great place to build a fire, because the fire would reflect, you know, same thing like over here. You know, you have this steep rock on the left side here, and you could just build your fire right there, and that'll reflect the heat off of the rock, and it'll make you warmer. Obviously now it's summertime, so it's not a big concern, but in the winter time you definitely would want to find something like that where it could reflect the heat back to you. You know, and a little crevice like this breaks the wind, so it makes it easier to start the fire, and it contains all the heat inside. So it's a really good like shelter area and a fire area. So that's just a good example of using your surroundings to your advantage. Alright guys, we made it to Nuclear Lake, and I don't see any radioactive fish or anything, but you can see it's a really nice area. It's a secluded lake. A lot of people go fishing here, and I'm going to test it right now. I have my Therapy Geiger counter, and we're going to see if there's any radiation here. I doubt it. But yeah, it's a really nice lake here. I definitely recommend you guys check it out if you're in the New York area. It's right off the Appalachian Trail, and there's actually some coyote prints here. You can see they're going up to the water to get a drink. There's quite a few of them, actually. Quite a few coyote prints here. And they're pretty big, so it's interesting. Looks like they use this area heavily as a water source. You can see that there's a lot of tracks here. I'll turn my Geiger counter on now. And yeah, looks like it's normal background radiation here. So there's nothing to worry about. Put it up to the water and see if there's any change. I doubt it, but yep, 0.10 microsieverts per hour. So it's lower than that normal background radiation. So yeah, it's pretty safe here. I wouldn't really worry about it. The water's clean, and it's a nice area. Sun is setting already, so water's really still. There's some beavers that live on the north side of the lake up there. There's some beavers that live up there, and the actual where the facility was is down over here. I'll show you guys in a bit. That's where the actual Nuclear Lake research facility was, where they were building you know, some fuel, plutonium and stuff. And there's actually a person here fishing. I didn't even notice, on a boat. So it's pretty cool. Just wanted to show you guys how big these coyote tracks are. This is my Therapy Geiger counter. You can see how big it is. You know, these are big coyotes here. Or it could be just one. Maybe it's the alpha male, the leader of the pack. You know, these are probably like 1.5 inches. I mean, just look, compared to my finger, it's definitely not a dog or anything, because I don't see any human footprints here. So like I said, there's some big coyotes in this part of the country, in Hudson Valley of New York. There's huge coyotes here. There's so many deer and so many animals for them to eat, so they get really big. And they're mixed in with wolf DNA. You know, they're mixed, so they have some wolf in them, so they get pretty big. And this is just my Geiger counter clicking. Some nice rocky outcroppings there on the other side of the lake. It's really peaceful here. Water is really still. Alright guys, so this is the road that used to lead up to Nuclear Lake. This is where the actual facility was, up on the hill there. And this is the actual like access road that they used to use. Now it's just a hiking trail. So it's pretty interesting. I think it was defunct in like the 70s or 80s.